Good afternoon, Warriors, and welcome in to the last edition of the R&R Sports Report for the year 2020. We have made it. Robert, how you doing, man?
Hopefully we kick it out of the park. I want to get this 2020 out of it, and hopefully 2021 brings some much needed area sports and a lot of positives.
We were just talking about that, about, football's running out. We're running out of NFL. College football is almost done. We're still going to be able to stretch an hour of football. That's easy. Eric Watkins already jumping in, wanting his 5-pin talk. We might have to get there if we don't get local sports. We'll learn about this 5-pin bowling, and we will talk about it. Very jam-packed show, especially on the football side. We have the college football playoffs this week. We've got the Heisman that'll come out next Tuesday before our show, so we'll do the preview for that. Obviously, there's a ton of playoff scenarios we've got to discuss. Draft orders got somewhat locked in a little bit. So I'm just going to say right now, NFL or at the football hour is going to go longer than an hour this week. It helps that
I'm okay with that.
That's fine. LCSE had no games this last week. They just announced a bunch of them today. I had checked earlier today when I was setting up my part of the outline, and there were no games. And I checked 20 minutes ago just to see, and there's a lot. So we have some somewhat breaking LCSE basketball news to get to you, and some news that we just missed last week that we will get to as well. In the second hour, we got some NBA to talk about. High school sports getting back going for Lewiston and some of the local teams. Some big MLB news. Eric, I hope you stick around for that because I want Eric's reaction to the Blake Snell trade because that came out of nowhere to me. But I'm glad he's out of the American League East, that's for sure. But first, let's talk.
You just don't want to face him anymore.
No, absolutely Yankees. Not. I want to talk Christmas. How was your Christmas?
It was okay. Just kind of laid low. Again, just trying to, protect the family and all that. And so didn't get together or anything like that. So watched the Saints play and just, kicking it, trying to enjoy a few days, not knowing what's going to happen with the school district once we get back to school on the 4th and how Governor Inslee is going to change things. So it'll be, a little interesting to see what happens here in the next couple of days.
Tim's mad at me because I don't have enough waiver wire or IR spots on our NBA basketball league. So he wants a thumbs down. He wants a thumbs down me for this. It's great. We're having fun right before the show. All of a sudden, I looked down at the clock and we're starting soon. So, yeah, Christmas here was pretty good. We spread it out over a couple days just to not have a big crowd. We did one family on Tuesday. We did my mom's on Thursday. And we went and saw my dad too. And then Friday was nice and quiet, which was nice. Did the Zoom call thing that I think a lot of people were doing for Christmas. Zoomed in my sister and did what we could there. Kids, of course, had a good time. My wallet's going to be hurting for a while. I'm hoping for that stimulus check to come in to replenish what happened for Christmas. But it was good.
That's the thing. Denise, plans out along and starts shopping a long way. But we did do one present. I waited till I want to say it was like December 9th and ordered it. No, December 10th and ordered it. So it actually was supposed to be here yesterday. Finally showed up today. So after looking and saying, "Oh, it's delivered," so the first thing crossed my mind was somebody was following the truck and stole. It's like I looked around the house. I was out at 9 o'clock circling the house, walking to the neighbors. Did you get a package that was intended for me? So it sucks this time of year. I feel for those drivers. I mean, right. The hours they put in, it's just nuts.
And with everything getting backed up anyways, I couldn't imagine. But
or he could be like Tim Neal and work down at Walmart and have all these crazy people in there all the time, right, Tim?
Well, I mean, he fits in with the crazy, so that's okay. Tim's used to it. So we've got all sorts of sports going on right now. Gonzaga just tipped off in their game against Nobody Cares University. Who are
Dixie,
they? Dix.
Dixie,
Sure.
and they're still showing the outside, so I don't think they've tipped quite yet. As it,
Oklahoma and Miami currently in the fourth quarter, or Oklahoma State, sorry. Oklahoma State over Miami 37-34. So I'm surprised we have Eric Watkins watching live right now. He's a big Miami Hurricane fan, so he's probably nervous about that game. And the Alamo Bowl between Texas and Colorado just about to tip off. So lots of live sports. We're getting into that bulk of the good part of the bowl season. We only had the one good bowl
mm,
this last week, and it was the game that we expected. Liberty and Coastal Carolina was a fantastic showing between two teams we really expected. His TV was taken over. I was mad at the first quarter. It's great. It was the game we expected, and we wanted to see it a few weeks ago. Luckily, we got the great BYU Coastal Carolina game. This game goes into overtime. Liberty gets the win, gives Coastal Carolina their only loss of the season, winning 37-34. And this game should not have gone into overtime, as I don't understand coaches. And Robert, I want to get your thoughts on this because we saw the exact same thing happen with Las Vegas against the Miami, playing
mm.
for the field goal. We saw early on in the season Todd Gurley fall into the end zone on accident for Atlanta and Detroit, coming all the way down and being able to win the game that route. So maybe it just doesn't work anyways. But Liberty, with 41 seconds to go at the 5-yard line, decides to run the clock out so they can kick a field goal. But instead of just taking a knee, they still ran the ball. The pile gets pushed. Looks like he goes into the end zone, but right before he crosses the line, he fumbles the football. And Coastal Carolina picks it up. So we go into overtime, no field goal attempts, no nothing. And then nothing really happens in overtime. Both teams go 3 and out. Liberty hits their field goal, and Coastal did not hit theirs. And Liberty, the Flames, end up still winning the game. But I want to get your thoughts on that coaching decision.
I, I can see both ways of it. As being a coach myself, you always play for the score, but I'm shocked they didn't try to punch it in. Really, if they're going to run it and play for the tie, I mean,
No,
you're
they were
that
playing
close.
to win. It was a tie game. They were just trying to run the clock out so they can kick a field goal.
Right, but I think I would have just went 100% for it. I mean, why have your players go halfway and then fall down to kick the field goal? Just punch it in, get it over with. At least on that side. And we'll talk about the NFL one here a little bit later, but that one a little shocking too. So, but I was highly impressed with Grace McCall, and the kid there from Coastal, just a freshman, puts up some huge numbers there. 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then has 96 yards and 1 touchdown, and led the way for rushing for his team too. I think we're going to see Coastal Carolina in the next couple of years too.
Yeah, especially that coach sticks around. He's really built a pretty good program there. We'll see what happens there. Again, that was really the only bowl. I didn't watch a lot of bowl games this week with all of the Christmas stuff getting spread out and just not really having that much interest, I guess. So I didn't really watch a ton of football. But we got some good ones this week, and we want to do a quick little preview. So we have the Cheez It Bowl going on, which is
Yep.
fun.
Yep.
I love that. I still love that it's a Cheez It Bowl.
And we're down to a minute and 41 left, and Hurricanes going for it 4th and 9 right now. So
We'll try to keep Eric updated on his team. And then, of course, the Alamo Bowl, we're just kicking off. Tomorrow, you have the Duke's Mayo Bowl between Wake Forest and Wisconsin. Both Robert and we take Wisconsin, right?
yeah, a huge favorite. Wisconsin up almost 10 points, I think, on that one. They should have no problem with that, especially if you're eating Duke's mayonnaise, depending on where you are in the country. It's not Hellman's or Beth Foods. I guess it's got to be Duke's.
And then the big one on Wednesday, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic between number 7 Florida and number 6 Oklahoma. This will be a fun one.
Yeah, you and I are split on this one. I think if it's right, you were planning
Uh,
on taking Florida.
Give me Kyle
Uh,
Trask. Uh,
uh,
I understand it's a weird year where we get the Heisman after most of these bowl games, and I know the votes are obviously already in, but Kyle Trask is still trying to push his name up there as being a Heisman finalist, and I think he's going to lead the Gators to a victory here.
yeah, I think the running monster there in Oklahoma, they're going to go and just run all over Florida. I don't think they'll cover the spread. I think it's going to be more of a 10-point game than it will be just the 3-point favorite. So look for that one to be a huge game tomorrow night.
And then on Thursday, you have the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, which the name itself is ridiculous. And it's an Armed Forces Bowl, and you don't have anybody in the Armed Forces in this bowl game. You have number 24 Tulsa against Mississippi State, who has a 3-7 record.
Yeah, that's just they're trying to fill spots.
I
Come
get
on,
it.
I mean, it just more proof with all this going on. Hey, let's get into a college football board. Let's just do 16 teams. Get it out of the way. Let them still do their have their names. Keep the Duke's Mayo Bowl, but that's going to be the 8-9 matchup. Or whatever you want to do it. But what are we looking at? You're looking at 8, 12, 14, 15 games. And we already have how many bowls? They're right now.
40.
Last year was like 30, 35 last year. Um, but
It's
take
too
the take
many.
the 15 top. Take the 15 top. Let's just do it and run with it.
I agree with David Johnson. If Florida doesn't throw any cleats in this game, they win.
They,
It's still insane. The ending of that game was so great.
that's still the most stupidest college play in the year. That's the number
Mm,
one bonehead play of the year. Maybe that's
absolutely.
what we need to do. Maybe we need to do a little video research and come up with the 2020 bonehead plays of the year for college football.
We could probably do that, and especially if you then add in the NFL. Robert's making some sense. Eric, get out of here. I don't know what he's saying. No sense for Robert. The Offer Pad Arizona Bowl between Ball State and San Jose State. I liked Ball State. They had that ridiculous play to win. I forget even who it was against now, but they went on to play Buffalo. Um, I wanted to pick them, but San Jose State looked really, really good against Boise State. So I think I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, they're still 7-0, ranked 22 in the country. I think they take care of business. 9.5-point favorite. So look for them to cover that one easy. And I don't think you and I mentioned we both took Tulsa in the
Oh, I'm
in
not taking a 3-7 team to win a bowl game ever. I think.
never
Well,
pulling upset.
I'm pretty sure this is the first time it's ever happened. The AutoZone Liberty Bowl, West Virginia, 7-point favorite against Army. Maybe it's because I was on the kickoff for a few months with somebody who's a big West Virginia fan, but give me West Virginia.
I like Army. I mean, running game. They'll run all but I say the over under on pass attempts for Army will be 5. They don't throw the ball.
They don't
Let's
throw the
just
ball.
run it. Um, and that might be explain why the over under is only 41 points.
They like to keep
I
it
think they're going to
close.
run it. Yeah, yeah. But give me the over on that one, and I will take Army as they are the dog in this game.
All right, we're not going to talk about the college football playoff games just yet, but on January 1st, you have two other bowl games. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which is going to be good too. Number
Mm-hmm.
9 Georgia against number 8 Cincinnati, and I know we put down our picks just to keep them so we can look at it next week. But I knew your pick before you wrote it down.
Yeah, and I've been on their bandwagon all year. I know they're the dog in this one, but I just like Cincinnati and what they have done this year, and you know they need to stay 9. They need to go 10-0. So I think I think that's the smartest thing to do. And now look at this. Eric's already dogging on me. Well, come on now. Triple option. Yeah, ah, West Virginia is still, even though they're favored, I think they won't cover if they win. They won't cover. It'll be close.
Before we get to my pick, we'll answer this real quick. David Johnson wants to know our thoughts on Boise State coach to Auburn.
Ah, I don't know. I think they kind of cut ties really quick with Gus. I know Gus was there for a few years, but bringing in Brian, um, what I can't remember his last name. Brian. Um,
I have to look it up.
Harson. I wanted to say Haskin, but Haskin's a different guy.
Well, we'll get to
Brian
Haskins in
Harson.
a minute.
Yeah, Brian Harson. And so we might as well drop the dime
Yeah,
here right now. As David, I don't know if you heard this one, but yesterday, um, Kellen Moore showed interest in the Boise State head coach position. He was asked
I think he's interviewed
earlier.
for it, right?
I don't know if he's interviewed yet. I know he was asked by, I want to say the Idaho State Press, and he did say that it is special to him. He loves that place. You know, right now Kellen Moore is the OC with Dallas. What better way to get out of Dallas and to go back to your alma mater and coach? You know,
Yeah, that
I
could.
think that might be a good fit.
I've liked his Kellen Moore's play calling in Dallas, especially when they had Dak Prescott. So I think that would be fine.
I think that's a big difference. I mean, Dak Prescott is no Andy Dalton and vice versa. So, I mean, Kellen's had to really change the play calling with this ball club, and you know, it's easy to see that Dallas could have ran away with that division. How garbage it is. We'll talk about how garbage that
So,
division is in a
so
little bit.
back to the Georgia Cincinnati game because I am going against you again, and it's for the fact that Georgia does not allow you to run the ball. Georgia allows less than 70 yards a game on the ground, and Cincinnati is a perfectly balanced team that averages over 200 yards on the ground themselves. And I think Georgia's going to be able to make them one-dimensional and make it very difficult. Georgia had that one big loss against Florida that really killed any chance of them to make a late playoff run, but they looked fantastic against South Carolina and Missouri. And I think they come out strong and give Cincinnati their first loss of the year.
Yeah, and you look at both of those losses for Georgia. I mean, against Bama and against Florida. I mean, both good ball clubs. Um, don't take anything away from Georgia. I mean, I do follow Georgia because they are my cousins' teams down in the Georgia and Florida area. So we do a lot of razzing each other and all that. But I just have been on Cincinnati.
Oh
I
yeah,
like
I
what
knew.
they're doing.
I knew.
So
Final now in the Cheez-It Bowl. Oklahoma State defeats Miami 37-34. Sorry, Eric. And in the Alamo Bowl, Texas already up 7-0 over Colorado after a Bijan Robinson touchdown run. So there's a quick little update. As where are we at? Citrus Bowl now, Auburn versus Northwestern. And you're going Auburn.
I just I was back and forth with it. As well as Northwestern's played this year, I just think Auburn has something to prove with the changing of the coach, and I think they're going to make a statement here to end the season. They have to save any kind of positivity for the season with everything going on, and they've lost some big games this year as they played. They lost to Georgia, they lost to South Carolina, and they lost to Bama.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to some good teams. I think they want to make a statement and kind of prove the dominance of the SEC. So
Obviously, Auburn
I'm
loses. Like you said, Auburn loses their head coach. To me, Northwestern wants to prove that they are legit. And even though
mhm.
Auburn had a down year, for Northwestern to be able to finish the year saying they beat an SEC team, I'm going Wildcats. Saturday, you have one good bowl game, I guess. Real quick, the Gator Bowl between NC State and Kentucky. We both say NC State's winning, but I mean the line's only 2.5, so that could be pretty good. The Outback Bowl, we both have Indiana beating Ole Miss. The Fiesta Bowl, Oregon and Iowa State. I'm taking the upset with Oregon. Why? I don't know. There's no good reason for it. Iowa State, it's one of those that Iowa State had the downer by losing the Big 12 championship game. And you see this a lot in college football where you lose the big game and you get to a bowl game and they just don't care.
Right.
Especially this year with all of the other distractions and the lockdowns. And I can see Iowa State basically no showing this game.
I I can agree, yeah, but you look at what they can do with the ball,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they will run the ball a little bit harder. Oregon's got to prove something. I mean, yeah, they got to fill in for Washington and ended up winning the Pac-12. You know, hurrah to you! But you beat a team that had tough time finishing there with USC. So I think Oregon might be coming down from their high of that one, and Iowa's gonna come in and run away with that.
This year's also strange because usually if you're playing in a New Year's Day bowl or right around New Year's, you've had a month and a half since your last football game. And it's not that case anymore.
No,
It's a 2-week layoff for some of these teams. So it's going to be a little different. And then the big one, the Orange Bowl, Texas A&M and North Carolina. This game will be really fun. And again, it's does Texas A&M feel slighted for not making the playoffs and come out firing, or do they feel slighted for not making the playoffs and put out a rough performance? I think that is the big question in this game.
I think they have to come out and just say and just prove everybody wrong. And this goes back to the idea. I mean, this team was one of the big teams that we followed all year long. We said A&M, we said Cincinnati, we were on Coastal Carolina too. I mean, these teams deserve a chance at it, and I think Texas A&M might be that team that's going to come out and prove it and say, here you go. This is why we need to change what we're
Right.
doing and get to a playoff system. But I think they're going to prove something. And don't take anything away from North Carolina. I mean, 8-3 on the season, but I don't think they have a chance against Texas A&M.
Honestly, I think they do. I'm taking Texas A&M to win this game, but North Carolina has been that sneaky good team. I know they've lost 3 games on the season. They lost to Florida State, Virginia, and they lost a good one against Notre Dame. But they can put up points in the bunches. They scored over 50 points. What am I seeing here? 4 different times. They're a fun team to watch. I've watched them in a few times. As I'm with David, I did not believe Notre Dame should have been in after their really sad performance against Clemson. They should have lost both games against Clemson. Trevor Lawrence plays that first game. Notre Dame's not in the playoffs because they lose that game. Backup quarterback for Clemson, and it still took 2 overtimes for you to beat them. And then you got squashed the next time. I don't think the Irish got in because it's the Irish, because it's Notre Dame and it's the recognition, and they want that big name appeal, which is why college football has its issues. All right, before we get into the 2 semifinal games, a quick update for any Gonzaga fans out there. 30-18 over Dixie State are the Bulldogs with 11:32 to go in the first half. IIE has 10 points already for the Bulldogs, so a nice start for them. You expect this to expand quickly, I think, especially in the second half if it's anywhere near close. But just to kind of give you an update.
Well, if Kispert plays anything like he did on what was it, Saturday, he played, he set record 9 for Gonzaga, nine 3-pointers. So that team is well rounded, very deep, and look for them to probably run away with it.
Ooh. All right, it is now that time. Let's talk about the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, those college football playoff games. And I think this first one's quick. I still hate the fact that the Rose Bowl is in Arlington, Texas. I understand the restrictions, and I understand you want family to be at these games and to be a big experience. I hate the fact that Notre Dame is in this game to begin with. I hate it even more because before they played Clemson, the Notre Dame coach came out and said that if the Rose Bowl stayed in California and their families couldn't go, they were not going to that game. and now here they are in Rose Bowl, and they got their way in more ways than one. It just drives me nuts. Alabama is going to crush this team.
Yeah, it'll be a no doubter. Alabama's just way too good. I mean, you look at where they are over the last few years. I don't think they're going to have any issue running all over Notre Dame. Again, I mean, you look at how the things could have paired out. Maybe if we did a playoff system, if we look back at the bracket we did last week, that would have paired them against North Carolina. We would have been a little bit easier schedule.
We
Get
just
back
give
in
up
it.
on
I
the
know.
16-team
Uh,
playoffs.
but
When
I
we've
mean,
talked
that's the
about it
thing.
enough.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, though. I mean, if they would have had another game or so get back into it, I think they stand a chance. But where they played one, they're out. I mean, it's going to be ugly in the fourth quarter.
I'm,
I think.
I'm having fun with the comments here, and it worked out perfect because you said Notre Dame was supposed to play North Carolina. Because Eric, the stat man Eric over here, said that the Rose Bowl was played in North Carolina back in '42. How is this any different? And I agree with David Johnson. I wasn't alive in '42. That's the difference.
That's
That's
why
the
Randy doesn't like all the trivia questions. I have to go back to trivia questions that are of
I'm old. I'm not that
1990s
old.
or newer. Yeah, I think you're right. This game's over in the third quarter,
If that.
and Bama runs all over Notre Dame.
Ian Book for Notre Dame has had a fantastic year. Clemson showed exactly how to beat him. You contain him in the pocket. You play him like you play a Lamar Jackson. You don't let him out of the pocket. You don't let him use his legs. You make him throw the ball, and he doesn't have the same arm that Lamar Jackson does. And Clemson completely dominated. Saban has watched that game over and over and will use that same tactic. Devontae Smith is going to have a fantastic game against the Fighting Irish. I don't think this game is going to be close at all. Especially, I mean, Alabama's rush defense is fantastic. So I just don't see Notre Dame being able to contend. And that's fine because Alabama has been really good all season long. And that gives us the really good one. That's the Sugar Bowl. Number 3 Ohio State versus number 2 Clemson. Robert, who do you got in this one and why?
I think I'm still on Clemson. I think I mean Ohio State might be the better team. Maybe I'm still a little bitter about them getting in and getting to play in the Big 12 championship. Making
Big Ten,
the
Big Ten champion.
adjustment. Big Ten, yep, making them change all of that. I think Clemson's going to win this one, and it's all because of Lawrence. It's going to be the Lawrence show.
I love the fact that the 2 quarterbacks that are projected to go 1 and 2, even though now that the Jets are the 2 pick, I don't think they go with a quarterback. I think they stick with Sam Darnold, but we'll get to that. And Eric, the Jacksonville fan over here, I'm sure wanted to hang out on the show so he can gloat that his Jaguars are the number 1 pick. But it is Lawrence versus Justin Fields, and I'm picking Ohio State. I know they have not looked fantastic. I know everyone finds it controversial that they got into the Big Ten championship game. I still stick to the point that if Ohio State did not make the Big Ten championship game based on the rules that Big Ten had set out, they still would have had a good enough resume. They still would have played a really good Northwestern team. And I think Ohio State would have beat Northwestern. And I just think they're the more complete team, that we've not seen them really get into a rhythm yet. Them taking 2 weeks off seems like the norm for the Buckeyes right now before playing Clemson. And I don't believe Clemson's defense is going to be able to contain them. I like the offensive line of the Buckeyes. Obviously, they're big, stout Midwesterners. And I'm going to take the Buckeyes with a bit of the upset here.
Yeah, it can go both ways. I think Fields is a great athlete. You watched over his last few things. Yes, I just read the same comment. So um, I think Lawrence is just going to be too much for Ohio State. And Ohio State, like I said, we look back at their schedule last week or week before last, and they haven't really played any
No.
big teams. So this will be their first huge matchup to see if they actually are deserving of the number 3 seed. I think it, along with probably the Georgia Cincinnati games, are the games of the weekend.
All right, and now we'll talk about who we think wins the national championship once we know the four teams. But now let's just talk Heisman real quick because that will be announced next week on Tuesday, just before our show goes on the air. A nice little pre-show for the R&R Sports Report, if you will. Robert, who wins the Heisman?
Well, first of all, let's congratulate Devonta Smith, the Offensive Player of the Year for uh, college football. He's got to be thrown in that mix of Trask and Lawrence and Mack. But I think let's give it to the receiver this year. I mean, he has played an unbelievable, had an unbelievable season. Yeah, a lot of teams have to find ways to match up against him, and he is able to beat those matchups. So I think Smith might win it hands down.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't think it's hands down. I worry because Mac Jones has also had a fantastic year, both from Alabama. Do those two players have their votes split as far as who goes where? I think Kyle Trask probably had was the front runner, and he struggled in the SEC championship game. So does that knock him down? Trevor Lawrence, obviously with the COVID stuff, he didn't really have that great of a year, anyways. So, yeah, I'm gonna say Devontae Smith, but I don't think it's a for sure lock. I think it's gonna be really close between him and Mac Jones, and Trevor Lawrence is just a name, so I think he probably still finishes third. David Johnson over here says Devontae Smith. Eric says Smith and Jones are going to split votes. Lawrence will have the easier path, and he is the name power. I do agree there, and the fact that he missed the game against Notre Dame and it went to double overtime, and then he plays Notre Dame and crushes them in his last game before the votes helps as well. So I think the only name I would be surprised with is Kyle Trask, just for how he finished the year.
Yeah, Kyle, where he came out, I think that really terrible game, uh, really chewed up what he thought was going to be a runaway for him. And I think it was a two person race with him and Lawrence. Lawrence doesn't get sick. It's totally different. But I think the loss to A&M, I really think affected how things happen. And to lose by a field goal to LSU, LSU has not played well. Big O just kind of
Hey,
did
but they
whatever he
would.
wanted.
David Johnson's already talked about it. They would not have lost that game if somebody didn't throw a shoe.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
not Kyle
Don't throw the
Trask's fault.
shoe.
That's not
Yep.
Kyle Trask's fault. All right, you are listening to the R&R Sports Report right here this week on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for these 2 hours, especially on Facebook and Eric and David throwing in all these comments and having a fun conversation with us. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to our Facebook page and keep updated. Robert does a great job of throwing in news stories throughout the week to keep everyone updated. And also go over to YouTube and give us a little subscribe there. I like YouTube a little better just because it gives me more stats on who watches and for how long and stuff. But if you want to watch on Facebook, that works great just as well. We just appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We are not on 88.9 this week as everything is shut down over at LC. And honestly, since it is right after the new year for our next show, we might still be online next week, but I am hoping we can get into the studio and we will be back in our normal setting and masked up and ready to go next week. But we will let you know once I can get down to the school and see what kind of schedule they have for the sub building. But I just haven't been down there yet this week. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. And it is now time to talk NFL. Could Jones and Smith share it for the first? That would be interesting. I mean, they have so many votes and so many points. It would be crazy to see a tie. But that would be pretty cool. Let's talk NFL though, and we got. It was a light news week, I think. Robert, what do you say?
Light and meaning of all the
Everything is
funniness
happening.
or just everything happening it
So
a lot of
Dwayne
things.
Haskins should have been cut after hanging out at a strip club without a mask, but they didn't want to cut him because Alex Smith was not going to be back, and they didn't want to go with a third string quarterback in a game that really mattered. Uh, Turns out Dwayne Haskins, even though I was at bat for him at the beginning of the season, has continued to show his immaturity and not caring and played terribly. Has now been cut from the Washington football team. They're hoping for Alex Smith, but even if Smith doesn't come back, they don't care anymore. Ron Rivera is done with this kid, and it seems like the rest of the NFL is right now too. Is he not surprisingly cleared waivers? He'll get picked up somewhere to be a second string quarterback, or he will wait for the new XFL to come back and play there. What do you think of this?
I think it's about time. I'm a little shocked. That's kind of the message I sent you. I was a little shocked they didn't wait until Monday to go ahead and release him after the season, but yeah, I think he's just wore out his welcome. Only 2 years in, and it's time to, dude. You're making big money. If that's the thing, you need to act like a professional and play that way. But if you're going to do stupid stuff, and they all knew that there was going to be things that they had to do, protocols they had to follow. Uh, but dude, I hope you were throwing out $100 bills while you were there.
Eric says he wants to smack Booger McFarland. I missed this. What did Booger say, Eric? Robert,
Boogers just booger. Oh, boogers just jumping all over about the African American uh, players, and they're all about, instead of coming in asking about. Yeah, I'd agree with that, David Johnson.
James, I agree.
Yeah, they're more about these players building up their Instagram, building up their followers, instead of coming in and asking the team, "Hey, what can I do for you? What can I do?" And Booger kind of hit the nail on the head there at first and said, that's what it is. These kids are all about their own and not about how can my team make it into the playoffs. But that's why Booger's not in the booth anymore, because sometimes he lets his mouth just kind of ramble
I
on.
think Booger watched White Men Can't Jump. Wasn't that the whole motive of that? Was what Woody Harrelson was saying? What was his line in there? They would that Wesley Snipes would rather look good and lose than
I don't remember.
bad.
It's been a while since I watched.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
It hasn't been as long. It hasn't been
Haskins
as long
was
as
bad and lost and didn't care and never tried and good riddance. I'm disappointed. I had faith. I had hope for the kid. And hopefully he takes this as a life lesson. I liked his tweet afterwards saying he took all responsibility for it. He didn't blame anyone else. He said, I have to learn from this, and hopefully he does. I mean, that's all you can say. It's the same stuff with the Josh Gordon stuff we see where he messes up left and right, but you just have to hope that they can clean up their act, and if he can get things rolling, give him another chance down the road, and it's just not the time.
Man, how many times do we have to keep giving these guys second chances? I mean, you and I have talked many times. We're all about the second chances. Look at what Des Bryant's done with the Ravens. I mean, he's come back and played a couple of games.
Look at Mr. Trubisky.
He's understood his role there. He understands he's not the main target in Baltimore, but he's finally adding to the team. I mean, he's understood. But how many times do you have to keep doing it? I mean, Josh Gordon, how many times do you have to keep getting bounced around? I think this might be the last time we see Josh Gordon in the NFL.
That's true.
We'll probably see him in the CFL.
Speaking of second chances, the Rams signed Blake Bortles as an emergency backup as Jared Goff has broken and dislocated his thumb on his throwing hand and had surgery yesterday. He will not play. I love that they were like thinking, oh, maybe. There's no way with that kind of damage to your throwing thumb that you're going to be able to play in such a big game. John Wolford will start. He was the second round pick by the Arizona Hotshots of the AAF QB draft, and he played 8 games for the Hotshots before that league died. Through 1,616 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. I've heard good things. I don't know him very much. The AAF has kind of slipped out of my memory banks. I watched some of the games, but since then, the XFL came back and died again, and I just don't remember. But huge game for the Rams as they take on the Cardinals, and they also will not have Darrell Henderson with an ankle injury, and now Cooper Kupp is up in the air as he's been put on the COVID list. He could still come back in time. It's early enough in the week that he could clear by Sunday. But Arizona is not without their worries, as Kyler Murray has his own lower leg injury that happened really late in that San Francisco game. Cliff Kingsbury is still unsure if he's going to play Week 17, and it would be either Chris Streveler or Brett Hundley as your starting quarterback if Kyler Murray can't go. How about that? Two teams where they win and they're in, and we could have John Wolford versus Brett Hundley.
It's kind of it sucks for Jared Goff, especially he's had such an up and down season this year. This could have been the game to get him into the playoffs to prove that he's deserving to be in there. But did you see the dislocation in the picture? And
I
they
have not looked at
showed,
it.
and then
Try to
they
avoid that stuff.
yeah, and you watch him on the field pop it back into place, and then he tries to throw a couple more passes. It was. Yeah, it was terrible watching him pop it back in, but I think Wolford's got a chance to play decently. It's been a while since he's played, um, but Kyler Murray, I think, is the bigger injury. I mean, Kyler likes to run the ball a little. Yeah, I think Kyler, if he doesn't go, Kingsbury's got a big decision to do. Uh, but I would lead to Brett Hundley going that direction. But
Yeah,
you're exactly
he's
right.
seen the NFL field at least.
Yeah, he's had some time up in Green Bay as he was behind Aaron Rodgers, so he did get some play time there. So um, I just feel bad for these couple teams. We even talked about the NFC West being probably the strongest team, the strongest division early in the year, and for both of these guys to know that it's a win and get in scenario, it's going to be interesting when we get closer to Friday.
At least for the Rams, they can still lose and get in if the Bears lose to Green Bay. We'll get to all of the playoff scenarios here soon. There's a lot. Kyler Murray, though, I also am worried if he does play. We saw him with a lower leg injury earlier on in the year, and he was not good for those few games. He has to be healthy and mobile to really utilize the weapons that he has. And hopefully, I hope he's able to play and is feeling good enough to go because I like watching him play. But it's going to be a really interesting Sunday if we have a couple backups trying to figure out who makes the playoffs. I mean, it worked for the Eagles a few years ago with Nick Foles, but Justin Herbert sets the NFL rookie record for most touchdown passes in a season. He passes Baker Mayfield for that record with a 9-yard touchdown pass to Austin Eckler for his 28th touchdown pass of the year. That kid's really, really, really good. And I missed the mark on him for sure. I thought he was going to be a decent quarterback. I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, I didn't think so either with him coming out of Oregon. I knew he was good, but I didn't know he was this good. And talking with our buddy Doof is high on this guy. He likes him, likes where his team's going over the next few years. So I'm excited to see what this Chargers team is going to look like in the next couple of years after these guys both have some time to play with each other as
no
teammates and
no
no
offseason.
offseason. And that's the big thing. So David, I don't know. They should call Johnny Football. Come on now. How many more times are we going to give an extra chance to Johnny Football?
The XFL wouldn't even give a chance to Johnny Football.
Yeah, so leave Johnny Football out. Are you drinking the same hooch he is, David? That's what I want to know. I mean, let him stay out.
If Eric's still around, this is his moment. Jacksonville has locked up the number 1 pick. It looked really fun for a quarter and a half as the Jets were up on Cleveland and Jacksonville was beating Chicago. And then Jacksonville just turned everything off and forgot or just remembered what they were doing. Okay, fine. Tebow time. I'm cool with Tebow. That's fantastic. I've seen Tebow play live and in person. Nobody wants that. So Jacksonville's 1. Jets are locked in at the 2 seed. So Trevor Lawrence looks like he will be a Jacksonville Jaguar, and it is up now to the Jets to see if they go Justin Fields, if they go for an offensive line need or if they trade down. The rest of your top five, this is crazy to me because I forgot about this trade, but Laramie Tunsil was traded from Miami to Houston. And now it has come back to bite Houston in the butt because they should have the number 3 pick. And instead, the Miami Dolphins are sitting at the number 3 pick with a very young core. And that team could start looking really, really scary if they continue down that path. Atlanta at 4. And everyone's making fun of the Jets for slipping down the draft. Cincinnati's winning all the time, too. And all of a sudden, they have the 5th pick. So those are your top 5 draft orders. We're going to have plenty of months to talk about who goes where and what everyone should do. But what are your initial thoughts right now of this current top 5 draft order with a week to go?
Before you and I talked tonight, I figured it was going to be quarterback, first 2 picks. And the more I think about it and the more I've watched, and the more I'm going to applaud your New York Jets, because they did help Baltimore jump with
I'm still waiting for my thank you.
with them getting to knock Cleveland off there this last week. I think Sam Darnold isn't the problem in New York. I think they need to go a little bit different direction. I still see Jacksonville going quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Trevor Lawrence is a lock.
Yeah. Minshew, we were all on Minshew mania. I don't think he's going to get there, as they started Glennon this last week in Jacksonville. So I think they're going quarterback. There's a lot of needs for your Jets. I mean, I don't know which direction they go. Do they go a line guy? Do they go defense, or do they go a positional player? I mean, you need some position. I mean, get that. The ageless one is carrying the rock right now for you. Do you go with running back?
He's done for the year. I think with the Jets' second pick, Travis Etienne is the man, unless he starts moving up the draft board and past their spot. I think.
Do you see? I heard this one. Do you see the Jets trading out of the number 2?
That's what I want. You can get to the point where you have 2 mini draft picks. But I like the capital that they could get out of that number 2 pick. There are a lot of teams right around that area that are needing of a quarterback and a Justin Fields. Miami not Miami, but Atlanta at 4. Matt Ryan's not going to be there forever. It'd be nice for Fields to go there. And then you're only dropping down 2 spots, and you're going to be able to pick up a couple picks here and there. So it'll be interesting. A couple more quick ones. Big Ben will not play week 17. Mason Rudolph will start. So it just shows Pittsburgh does not care whether they're the 2 or 3 seed this year, since only the 1 seed gets the bye. And who knows who you're going to play in the wild card round anyways. So Indianapolis fans, I apologize, but Pittsburgh doesn't care if Cleveland wins.
Yeah, exactly. But it is going to be Rudolph versus Garrett, round 2. Who's going to win that one?
I forgot about
a year ago. So this is going to be their first matchup. So
that's awesome.
So we'll see how that turns out. Garrett has come off the COVID list. He didn't look all that hot 2 weeks ago when he came off the COVID list, as a little sluggish, but I think it's going to be interesting. He's going to put pressure to Rudolph, but I think the bigger question is, what does Pittsburgh do? I mean, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in the offseason, but what does Pittsburgh do? I mean, if Ben is still guaranteed $41 million, and I think it's 19 of it is for next year. Do you pay Ben 19 and draft his predecessor, or do they trade him and try to clear a ton of cap space? But for his age, 41 million is a lot of cap space.
Before this year, I would have said Big Ben plays until Big Ben wants to retire. And I think Pittsburgh just goes, you've given us everything and we understand. But New England moved from Tom Brady. So, but Big Ben signed in. So I think Big Ben goes. I can see Pittsburgh still drafting a quarterback as far as looking towards the future. Mason Rudolph is not that at all. But I think if Big Ben wants to play next year, he will be there. And David, if I think I'm understanding your question right, for the second pick that the Jets have in the first round, the one that they get from Seattle, would they trade or go for another player? Honestly, that depends on what's there and how the draft is going at that point, and where they're sitting, whether they trade down or not. It's one of those situations where I'm sure they will have two or three names that they really want, and if they feel like it's going to slip a little bit, they'll trade back, or if they go before them, they'll go ahead and trade back and try to fix the pieces. Joe Douglas is a really good GM, and I really thought he had a fantastic first draft. So I have a little bit of faith with him. Mike Mitchell, our Steelers buddy, says he will play one more year. And I like gambling on Wentz. Wentz would be a good gamble for Pittsburgh. He says Darnold, but I don't want Darnold to go anywhere. Darnold, if he leaves the Jets, is going to be like a Tannehill. He's going to turn his career around and probably even play better than Tannehill. I think he has better skills than Ryan Tannehill does, and in the right spot, he could be really good. Bill Belichick says Cam's going to start week 17. That's a stupid move. Look for your future. Cam's not going to be there next year.
I think Bill was trying to make a statement when he pulled him out there the other day. I mean,
Well, I think that was more for safety reason. It's you're getting blown out. It's the fourth quarter. Just give your guy a chance, but they need to see what they have. Stidham was supposed to be their quarterback before they were able to get Cam Newton, and they kind of soured on him. A lot of that because they didn't really have much of a training camp, and it would be a nice chance against the Jets to kind of just see what you have. Maybe he's worried that the Jets are red hot right now, and he doesn't want them to look bad because all of a sudden the Jets can't do anything but win games, apparently. And then we already talked about Kellen Moore possibly going to Boise State, which is really cool. Seattle waives Damon Harrison, as Pete Carroll says he has decided to stop playing. Did he listen to the J.J. Watt interview? Have you heard that J.J. Watt interview? That was fantastic.
I think I even shared it to our page. I mean, it's all 100%, and that's one player that I'm curious what he does next year. Does he re-sign
I hope
back
he goes
up with
somewhere else.
Houston?
Houston looks like a mess.
I would love to see him go someplace else.
How about J.J. Watt goes to Pittsburgh and you have all three Watt brothers together? I think J.J. would love that to end his career.
three Watts together on the Three Rivers.
Yeah,
I could see it happen.
that would be great. And I think Mike would be just fine with that. All right, let's look.
It'd be tough for my team, though.
Yeah, let's look at week 16 and what happened there. I told you the football is going to go long. We're almost an hour in, and we're just getting to the week 16 review, and that's okay. Because, again, the local sports is in a little bit of a downtime right now, but we will get to those near the end of the show. My first takeaway is the Chicago Bears might be the hottest offense in the NFL. I still would not be that worried to face them in the playoffs because they are the most hot and cold team you've ever seen. But this is now 5 straight games of at least 33 points for the Bears. David Montgomery has really gotten things going like a lot of people thought he was going to be when he came in as a rookie. Has struggled in his career to really get things going, has created a nice balanced offensive attack. Trubisky is not turning the ball over, which has always been his issue. Just 2 interceptions in the last 4 games for him. He's not throwing for high yardage numbers, but he's very proficient. He and Allen Robinson have a great connection. Jimmy Graham is showing to be a big touchdown monster again for Chicago. The offense is really, really good.
Yeah, they're looking better. I don't know if it's something that Matt Nagy finally listened to us and to the other people around that, getting a lot of heat from trying to do play calling. I still think, I don't like that fit there for him. But what Chicago's done the last couple of weeks, they're still in playoff contention. So, whatever they can do to get Montgomery into the end zone and keep him plugging away. He's in that top 10 tier, if not even the top 8 running backs right now in the National Football League. So one of the big ones for me is the whole Fitz and Tua situation. You look at how things were going there against Las Vegas and thought it was going to be um, a big loss. I thought, and all of a sudden Fitz comes in and cleans things up and comes away with a win. But God, you can see the mentorship happening there. Each time that Fitz had come off the field or Tua came off the field, they were both interacting right away. And I've watched a couple of videos of some practices that they've done, and it's the same thing at practice. I mean, Tua is right there. I think it's a great fit for Fitz being that mentor for Tua, and I like to see, and I like what's happening in Miami. So Miami having that third pick help the line out a little bit. I don't think I go positional because Parker is a good receiver there. I think you've got to go and shore up that line. You look at our buddy Jesse Davis, local boy. He has been playing unbelievable, but I think he's played every position on that offensive line this year. And this last week he played right guard. So I love to see him what's happening right there in Miami right now.
I hope Fitzpatrick becomes a coach when he's done.
Oh,
He does
smart.
a
He's
great
a
job.
smart kid.
And I've said this multiple times. I think that's how Miami should use Ryan Fitzpatrick, is as the first ever relief quarterback. He's like, all right, bring in the beard. It's time. Let's go.
But my question is though, if you watch, he never wears a mouth guard. How many pieces of gum do you think that guy chews in a ball game? You watch him in
I don't
between
know, but
plays,
I
he's
want
just
to know.
chewing, chewing, chewing.
My question is, do you think the Raider defender took the gum out of his mouth when he grabbed his face mask on that big play late in the game? That was a wild throw.
All right,
Robert Taylor wants to know, sir, what is on your TV?
so you'll have to put my TV up a little bit bigger. So we got Gonzaga up in the corner right now. First half, 63-38 over Dixie. Texas, Colorado is over on the other side. Right now, Texas leads Colorado 14-0. Down in the bottom, we've got Houston leading Tulsa in the first half, 26-23, and the Bucks game just finishing up over in the other corner. So I like seeing getting Dish lets me put all four games on there. I did tell the wife the other day, and I hope she's listening. I saw she made a comment about her Saints, but I told her I saw a 70-inch TV. It'd look real nice up on the wall up here, Then each of those split screens would be huge.
The no look pass magician. I love Fitzmagic played for the Jets for a little bit. He's so fun to watch. He's not the guy that you just want to lead your team the whole time and be your only quarterback, but he is so good on teams. Gonzaga, as you said, is on one of your screens. It is halftime for the Bulldogs, 63-38. So they're starting to pull away from Dixie State as expected. My second takeaway is my Jets winning again. The Cleveland wide receivers can't make the game due to the COVID restrictions. That was a big issue, of course, for the Browns. And Baker still had to throw the ball 53 times with no receivers around him. Austin Hooper, I thought, was going to have a bigger game, but he didn't. The Jets, obviously, when you're able to focus on one part of the game, it makes it easier for the defense. But their front line is getting better. It's very young. It would be nice to see what the Jets defense could look like with CJ Mosley. But we'll have to wait again until next year to be able to see that. Baker fumbles the ball 3 times, which obviously it cost the Browns the game right there at the end. The big thing for me, Sam Darnold hasn't turned the ball over for 3 straight games. It's a personal record for him, and I'm happy. So there you go, Jets, with just another win.
And I'm gonna agree with the guys there. Jets, 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 Jets. I was watching my Ravens play and watching them play against the Giants, and our game kind of wrapped up, and looked over, and there is Sam Darnold still moving the ball. But I think the biggest thing for me, and you kind of hit it, is Cleveland kind of got one dimensional, and so Sam was doing what he could, but how does your Jets hold the entire Cleveland running game to 45 yards? Yeah,
Their
they gave
rush
up the 2
is
touchdowns,
really
but
good. Their rush
45 yards.
fantastic. Well, fantastic is a long word, but they did a great job. That's how they beat the Rams and the Browns, is they shut down the run game. John Brown wants to know Seattle smoked the Jets 40-3, and all of a sudden the Jets are looking good. They woke them up, apparently. I don't know what to say. That was the one game in the last month that the Jets looked like their normal selves. They looked good against the Raiders, and they should have beat the Raiders. They looked like the better team against both the Rams and the Browns, and they won those games. Seattle was the normal Jets self. And that was right. Honestly, I think that's right after they got rid of Greg Williams. So a little, that was when they just started to change things on defense. That'll be my excuse, man. And I didn't want them to win that game anyways.
And what's funny about that, you say Greg Williams, that was exactly what the Sunday night crew or the Saturday night crew said about the Fitz Magic and Raiders one. You know that they're not going to throw a cover zero out there, and
Mhm.
so your Jets are making more influences all over this league this year, Randy. So you have to be proud of that. Maybe you can start wearing your Jets hat a little bit more
I
instead of
got
that Yankee one.
got a Jess mask that I got over here that I would wear when we go back to the radio station, but it muffles my voice so much it would not work. And my Jet sweatshirt's over here still. It's just too hot in this room.
Well, my second takeaway is Pittsburgh, and I hope Mike's still listening, but Pittsburgh, man, you're hanging on by a string. Big Ben not looking good. He will sit this week. Did watch the interview Mike Tomlin had today that he was going to fly a couple of the players into the postseason, basically meaning, Big Ben, you're going to sit this week, and we're going to hopefully you get calmed down enough that you will be able to play this next week. So we'll see, but if I'm Baltimore, I make it in. If I am Miami, make it in. If I am Cleveland, make it in. I roll the dice. I hope I'm up against Pittsburgh. They just not going the right direction. They're going the wrong direction, the wrong time.
Yeah, if you're a wild card team, if I give you the option of Tennessee, Buffalo, or Pittsburgh, they're tackling each other to try to play Pittsburgh
Hmm.
by far.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the thing. I mean, you look at Pittsburgh roster; they are getting older. But I kind of agree with Mike in one spot. He was saying he comes back for 1 year, and let's make it a big to deal.
Right.
I'm retiring at the end. Let it be that. Let him go out as a Steeler.
Doesn't happen in the NFL as much, but you see in Major League Baseball when Rivera and Jeter and David Ortiz all retired, they had their 1 year send offs. Go out there and get your rocking chair from the Cleveland Browns or something and make a big deal out of it. It would be kind of cool. I think he deserves that kind of send off. I've never been a big Ben fan, but he's been very important to the Steelers organization for well over a decade. So and give him that 1 year out. I'm glad Robert Taylor showed up because my third takeaway is I know he's not worried about it, but Kansas City's been sleepwalking. They're still winning. They're still winning, and they're still the best team in the NFL. But they can't play like this in the playoffs and get away with it. This is now 7 straight games where they have won a game by 6 or less points. They did not look good. Robert Taylor even is posting about how Mahomes looked terrible in the game. Again, they're finding ways to win, or Atlanta is finding ways to lose, I guess, this week, whichever way you want to take it. And my question is, are they going to sit people in week 17? Because they have now locked up the number 1 seed. And I think if you're playing this poorly, or this out of sync, especially for what we're used to with Kansas City, I think you need to use week 17 as that jumping point and then take the 1 week off. Just at least the first half. I think for at least the first half, Kansas City has to go out there guns a blazing.
Oh, I think 100% too. Even though they are only playing the Chargers, but I think the big thing for me is they've got to find a running game, and I'm not taking anything away from Edwards Alaire, or he's a great player, but you only have 117 yards rushing, and
Well, he didn't play.
46 of it goes to Daryl Williams. I know he didn't play, but you had Daryl Williams that had 46 yards. You had Le'Veon who had 30 yards. Patrick with his scrambling for 21, but they've got to find a running game to be 100% there, and that's the only thing that's going to wake them up to play well. If they go sleepwalking in after their bye week, after the bye weekend next week, I think if they get matched up with one of these teams that is getting hot, like Baltimore, Tennessee, it might be all over.
And I agree with Robert. I mean, we think that until they lose a key starter, and then them playing Week 17 was the dumbest decision ever. I get that too. I just think the AFC is so top heavy, and there's so many teams that we're worried about. I know Kansas City finds ways to win games. I mean, you look at their playoff run last year, being down 24-0 against Houston, coming right back and just blowing them out by the end of it. Being down 10 against Tennessee, who's a good ball control team with Derrick Henry, coming back to win that one, and then being down by double digits against the 49ers in the Super Bowl and winning that. I just feel like you can't do that every game and win every single time. They find a way to win. Mahomes is amazing. It's just I don't understand what's going on. And I agree with Mike, or their defense can't stop anyone either. They are the worst. I've heard this on Colin Cowherd every day for the last 8 years, it feels like. Anytime I turn on Cowherd, he is talking about the Chiefs have the worst red zone defense in the league, and that's not good come playoff time. So, I mean, they'll probably tune it up, and Kansas City will just roll the playoffs, and I'll sound like a moron. But I am a little worried about Kansas City.
I would agree with that 100%. And you say Cowherd. Every time I turn Cowherd on, he's talking and talking about how bad Baker Mayfield is. So I mean, and he handed to Baker. Baker's gotten a lot better, but it makes me wonder a little bit. My last one, and you and I, we kind of touched on it a minute ago, but you and I talked about it earlier before in pre-show. Um, was Bill Belichick trying to make a point? I mean, Cam's getting to that point that, yeah, he's getting older. He's not as mobile, even though he did score that one rushing touchdown that was crazy, going off blocks to fall into the end zone. But you know, I know he trying to make a statement at the end of the season. Is
No,
Bill trying to make a statement?
if he was trying to make a statement, he wouldn't have said Cam's going to start or most likely going to start week 17. I just think they were getting beat up. Go ahead and get somebody in there. Cam, has his injury issues, so avoid him. And I will disagree with Robert Taylor, who says that the scoring percentage includes field goals. It does not. I just looked it back up. Touchdown only. Kansas City gives up 78% touchdowns when their opponents reach the red zone. That is by far the worst in the league. Detroit's at 74%, and then you go down to 71% before you get to New Orleans and Tennessee, who are two playoff teams. My New York Jets ranked 11th in that. So there's another win for my Jets. Just take that, Robert. All right,
Well,
let's get to a quick, believe it or not. I knew football was going to run long. We're getting to the craziness,
I'm
which
okay with
I
it.
knew it was going. So let's do a quick Randy's Believe It or Not. We're going to do the Black Monday edition. And I want everyone, we have a fantastic group here today. Jordan also talking about the Chiefs getting everyone's best shot. So we're going to go through these coaches that we believe have a chance to be fired on Black Monday. Black Monday is known as that time where teams just wait for their last game to get done, and then the coaches come to pick up their stuff and then have their team meeting and get fired. We already have had the 3 coaches fired so far in Bill O'Brien, Dan Quinn, and Matt Patricia. I forget what our number was.
It was either 8 or 9, if I
Eight
remember
or
it.
9 that we were putting in there for the over-under for how many coaches get fired. I still think it's about the 8 or 9 mark. So let's go right off the bat with the New York Jets and Adam Gase. And I have to scroll up because they were throwing this stuff out here. You guys have been fantastic. I was just waiting till we got there. Eric Watkins says at least Gase is officially done. I agree. I think he's done. I've put out there that I would switch teams if he's not gone, and I have no worry that he's going to stick around.
I want to know if Eric is looking at our segment lineup because he picked 2 of the top 3 that are the first 3 we're talking about. What the heck?
Maroney is a Jacksonville coach, and he is a Jaguars fan. So Adam Gase, yes or no?
Yeah, I'm 100%. Adam Gase is gone. It probably would have looked a little bit different if your Jets hadn't have won the last two games, but now they're trying to scrap something out. Sliver of hope, maybe 10% he stays, but 90% says he's going to be gone on Monday.
10% is too much. Los Angeles Chargers and Anthony Lynn. Yes or no? Is he gone?
No, I like what he is. I'm going to say no, just because of the way things are turning around there. Herbert and Eckler are getting going. I think they will keep him one more year.
His end of game decision making is the worst in the league. Adam Gase
I,
is a terrible coach because, and I said this on, there's so much, but I said it on the kickoff once, and Eric looked it up, and it takes his team a little bit to get going. But once again, and I forget if the Jets scored on their first drive. I have to look this week. Hold on. Oh, they did
I
not this week, which snapped like an 8-game stretch where the Jets scored on their opening drive. Even in their game where they got destroyed by the Seahawks 40-3, their 3 points came off their first drive. Adam Gase is really good at scripting a drive. And then once it gets into the game decisions, you have to make adjustments. Adam Gase can't do it. And neither can Anthony Lynn. I think Lynn's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with Robert. He's saying long term. I don't think long term will
Well,
be
he's a
in
Chiefs
that.
fan, so he wants a terrible coach like Lynn to be
Right.
around the whole time.
I would say he's got one more year to prove it. Lynn gets only one more if he makes it through Black Monday.
Right. All right. So I say yes. Robert says no. Jacksonville Jaguars and Doug Marrone. I say he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah, he's definitely gone. I
I
don't
don't think
see him sticking around.
he's gone, and the Jaguars are texting Trevor Lawrence asking him who he wants to be his coach. Uh,
Yeah, take your pick. Who do you want to
how
go?
about the Cincinnati Bengals and Zach Taylor? I'm going to say no, but it's interesting.
I'm going to say no also. I think a lot of that goes down to what happened with Joe Burrow,
Mhm.
and then losing Dunlap this year to Seattle. I think kind of
And now they're
up
winning.
a little bit. Yeah, and now they're winning. Um, could that be from uh, what was his name? I'm trying to remember the current quarterback playing there. He's been playing quite well, the last couple of weeks. Just the last couple of weeks. I mean, just to get by. Um, but I don't see them getting rid of Taylor yet. I think
Brandon Allen is his name. I was blanking on it
Allen.
too. Just so you know, I looked up NFL coaching fired odds to get some of these names. So they're not stuff that I was coming up with. It's just the list that I found. This one was interesting to me that he's still on there because they've turned it around so much. But the Chicago Bears and Matt Nagy, if they lose to Green Bay and Arizona beats the Rams and the Bears miss the playoffs, do they fire Matt Nagy just for the fact that he messed around for so much in that middle of the year? What were the Bears 5-0, 6-0 before they lost their first game? And they blew it to where now they have to win week 17 to get in. If
Uh,
they lose, I think it's possible.
well, they went 3-1 in the first four. They lost to the Colts 19-11. So I think he's out. Over the first. Then they win the next two, and then they go on their losing streak and losing some close ones. But Nagy's just not the play caller that it should be there, and I think Nagy getting the play sheet out of his hand might help out a little bit. I don't know. Foles, I think he needed to make a decision
Hmm.
and quit going back and forth between the two. But I agree. Trubisky has looked really good over the last couple of weeks, but I still think Matt Nagy's gone on Monday.
I don't think so. And that's even with them. I think they lose. They might still make the playoffs if the Rams win. But uh,
We need to make sure we rewrite all of these down so
yes.
we have them.
Philadelphia Eagles and Doug Peterson. We got to go a little faster here. I'm going to say he's gone.
He's gone. He's going bye bye. I don't see him sticking around at all.
Minnesota Vikings and Mike Zimmer.
I know I'm gonna piss off my nephew, but he is also gone. Mike Zimmer, your time in Minnesota is done. It's time to get some new blood in there. I think that might be a good fit for if he gets another chance. Matt Patricia, maybe Bill O'Brien up there.
This one's my toughest one. I'm gonna say he stays, and I don't think it's the right decision, but I think he sticks around. And the last one I put on here for fun. How about the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick?
He,
He broke their phone.
I wonder how much that old school phone costs. I mean, does
Right.
AT&T still make those phones for them just for those things? I mean, how many of those are going through? No, Bill Belichick will leave on his own terms.
I agree.
So if this is the final year, it's him making the decision. That's it. But I think he stays for one more year to see if he can find one more quarterback. I mean, if Romeo Cannell can still be doing it at 70 plus years old and coaching, I think it'll be Bill doing that too.
And we will have all of that news on next Tuesday's show. We'll have a lot to talk about as far as playoffs and all of the coaches that are gone and who we think should take their place. We'll have all of that next week. Again, let us know what you think. Mike Mitchell thinks Chargers is the most interesting coin flip. It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't. Anthony Lynn is terrible. All right, let's get to week 17. Man, it's already 7:15. We could do 4 hours just on the NFL, especially with you guys have been so awesome with the comments and stuff and helping us with the show this week. We could just do football all the whole 2 hours, but we got some local stuff we got to get to soon. And I got some fun power rankings for sure. Playoff situations in the AFC. Kansas City's locked in at number 1. Buffalo is your 2 seed. Pittsburgh's your 3. Buffalo does own the tiebreaker, but Pittsburgh could get the 2 seed if they win and Buffalo loses. Obviously, Pittsburgh has shown they don't care. Tennessee right now is your 4 seed, and they will win the AFC South with a win or an Indianapolis loss. And if they lose, they will still make the playoffs as long as Baltimore or Miami loses. And then the wild card gets crazy as it's Miami, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Indianapolis battling for the final 3 spots. Indianapolis can still win the South. But Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland all in with a win. Miami plays Buffalo. Baltimore plays Cincinnati, and Cleveland plays Pittsburgh with their backup quarterback. I think Miami is the one that's in the most trouble, and that's only if Buffalo decides to go full strength with them seeing Pittsburgh not caring. And then Indianapolis has to win and get a loss from any of those 3 teams, or 4 teams with Tennessee. Who are the 3 wild card teams, Robert?
Yeah, for me, I had Miami as my long shot this year, but the way they've been playing, I think for them, they have to win against Buffalo, but Buffalo is pretty well going to be the number 2 seed, so it's all in Indianapolis's hand. But I think the bigger thing is it's going to be one either 11-5 or a 10-6 team that does not make the playoffs. It's ugly. It's
Guaranteed to
going to
have
be
a
ugly.
team not make it.
Yeah,
It could be 11-5 if all 4 win.
yeah,
And
and that I
honestly,
think that happens.
Miami is the only game that would scare me. Indianapolis plays Jacksonville. Jacksonville's locked in at the 1 spot, so maybe they'll play better and actually get a win. And Jacksonville's only win was week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. So, there you go. We have gone full circle.
Minshew mania, man.
I do think Miami misses out. I think it'll be Baltimore, Cleveland, and Indy as your final 3 playoff teams, which would be really interesting. It would set up Indianapolis against Buffalo, which would be pretty fun. Cleveland against Pittsburgh. We could have a rematch right in the making, and then Baltimore against Tennessee would just be a hard-hitting, ridiculous game.
Yeah, I don't want to see that one again. I'd like to see us not have to play Tennessee, but that's where the draw looks like it's going to happen again. Maybe Baltimore
will make the playoffs. I think so too.
Yeah, yeah. He's got to have his receivers. They can't be one dimensional. They have to get the 2-headed monster. We've been on board with the Hunt and Chubb story this year, so they have to play all 3 facets of the game.
So Eric brings up an interesting thing that they take care of business and help the Browns get in by beating the Colts. So another Randy, believe it or not, everyone in Indianapolis will be fired if they miss the playoffs because they lost to Jacksonville twice.
Um, no, no.
No,
If Frank Reich is good.
he's
I
doing
just think,
great. It would just be really sad to lose to Jacksonville twice in a year and miss the playoffs.
yeah, I think the big story in there is, sorry, Rivers is going to be out. It's going to be one of those other names that Mitchell threw out there earlier. It's going to be, is Carson Wentz
Mhm.
going to go to Indianapolis, or who does? Does Haskins get a chance to make that a running offense,
I
and
mean,
complement Taylor? I
as much
mean,
as I
there's
don't want,
lots of things that can happen.
as much as I don't want it, Darnold could end up in Indy. That would be a perfect spot for Darnold, but I don't want it. On the NFC, the one seed is not locked up. Green Bay is one, New Orleans is two, Seattle is three. And it gets a little interesting here is Green Bay, if they beat Chicago, they're the one seed. If they lose, then they want Seattle to lose because in a head-to-head matchup, Green Bay has a tiebreaker over New Orleans. If it's a tiebreaker between Green Bay and Seattle, Seattle owns that tiebreaker, so Seattle will move on. But if Green Bay loses and New Orleans wins and Seattle wins, then New Orleans has the tiebreaker and they get the number one seed. So it's just a weird mishmash of who can beat who, and it's Green Bay at Chicago, Seattle at San Francisco, and New Orleans at Carolina. I see all three of them winning anyways, but it's just
Mhm.
fun to look at. The number four seed comes down to whoever wins the horrible NFC East. And I have to scroll up because somebody asked this earlier and I kind of avoided it. It was David Johnson who asked
David.
the NFC East. I knew we were going to talk about it, so I wanted to wait. So, first off, at 10 o'clock Eastern over here on the Pacific time zone, Dallas will take on New York in an elimination game. And then they have to wait for the Sunday night game as Washington takes on Philadelphia. And if Washington wins that game, Washington is the four seed. If they lose that game, whoever wins in Dallas and New York will then be the four seed. So my question, and the question that David asked earlier, who wins the NFC East? Because we both at the midseason said Philadelphia, and we are both wrong.
Yeah. Um, Even though Hertz is making a name for himself now, I hate to say this, Shannon Wilson might be right. You know, Shannon even made that comment when he was on the show with us. He said a 6-10 team is going to win that division.
Gross.
I say, I know, I can't believe I'm saying it. Dallas Cowboys, I think they
Oh,
go
oh,
in,
so here's your thing.
handle business.
If Dallas loses, or if Dallas goes 6-10, that means they lost. The only team that can go 6-10 and win the division is the New York Giants.
Yeah. So even Shannon was one game off, but I think Dallas goes into New York and handles business, and I got money on Philly. I think this
I,
week, on
I
that
love
Monday
it.
night game against
I love
Washington.
this so far. We've got Jordan Brown saying the Cowboys. We've got Eric Watkins saying the Giants. It's just because he is on the kickoff with Jason Teasley, who's a Giants fan, and he doesn't want to hear that. I think after Sunday, I'm going to go to the football team just because I want to say the football team made the playoffs. I think Antonio Gibson's going to run them into the playoffs. He was just coming off injury this last week. Looked okay, but they got down too much to really keep going with the running game with Haskins turning the ball over. So I say Alex Smith comes back and gets that hero play on Sunday Night Football and gets the football team into the postseason. As far as the wild card goes in the NFC, Tampa Bay has locked the playoff spot. However, if they lose and the Rams win, they will drop to the 6th seed, which is big because you want the 5 seed because you want to play whoever wins this NFC East in your first week. You don't want to have to play a Packers, Saints, or Seahawks team if you don't have to. Like we have said multiple times, Rams and Cardinals play each other. Whoever wins is in. And if the Cardinals beat the Rams and the Bears lose to the Packers, then both the Rams and Cardinals are in. If the Bears also win, they're in. So just not as messed up in the NFC, but still a lot to play for with 0 of the 7 seeds locked into place right now.
And what did we say? 11 of the 16 games matter. So,
Yes.
looking at that, so it is a great weekend of football. So I plan on probably sitting in front of many screens and watching those games go down this weekend. But I don't think if I had to choose which one, I don't think the Rams are going to make it in there just because. I mean, you're missing
Well, you
Cup.
have to. You're saying Chicago beats Green Bay?
You know, there's a chance.
Yeah.
There's a chance. The way they've been playing, there's a chance.
All right. It is now 7:25. We're a
Half
good
hour.
40 minutes behind schedule, and that's cool. Cardinals and Ram game. It is going to be well. The Rams will have a backup. Cardinals might, and even if they don't have a backup, Jordan Kyler Murray's going to look like a backup if he's not able to run like he usually does. We talked about that earlier. It'll be really interesting to see what happens there. All right, it is power rankings time, and I have left you clueless on my number 5 team. But I want your top 5 first. And I'm so
My
wait before we go. I am so proud of you, Robert. You have 5 teams in your top
I
5.
I finally did 5, but I've got a couple that just slipped out just because of the way they played this last week. My top 3 stayed the same, and I'm going to do it in that order, kind of like you were talking earlier. My number 1 still Kansas City, but I agree with all the comments earlier. They've got to shore the defense up, especially in the red zone, if they want to make a run. So 1 is Kansas City, 2 Green Bay. Green Bay looked great in the snow. Also playing Dylan, getting time because Jones not playing or Williams not playing. So they've got a great rookie there with Dylan. So I'm excited for that. Josh Allen in number 3 with Buffalo. Josh is making that team look really, really good. I like where they're at. So 1, 2, and 3 is going to be Kansas City, Green Bay, and Buffalo. I dropped Tennessee out of the top 5, and I'm going to put New Orleans in there just because Drew Brees, he did come back. What didn't play?
I
Oh,
just heard Denise.
he, yeah, she finally showed up. She finally showed up. But yeah, I'm going to put the Saints there at the number 4 spot. Kamara comes off an unbelievable game, 6 touchdowns, and he's still nowhere close to being in the top running backs. Still only sub 930s, I think, for yards, tied with 16 touchdowns. But I'm going to put them there. And yep, it's Omer time. I'm going to move. No Hawks there, Rob Nye. No Hawks. They do not make it in my top 5 as the Baltimore Ravens have been playing unbelievable here over the last couple of weeks. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards looking really good as the last 2 weeks. Mark Ingram has been healthy scratch and not playing. But Lamar is playing like Lamar did in the middle of last year. So I like what they're doing, especially getting hot at the right time. So that is my top 5: KC, Green Bay, Buffalo, New Orleans, and Baltimore.
All right,
And
now
no
it is
ties.
time for my 5, and that 5th spot's really tough. Right? I understand Robert is always interested in where we put Seattle, and if we do a top 10, it's there. Their offense just looked so rough this last week against the Rams. It was 2 good drives for Seattle, so it's really tough. But here are
You know,
my
you
top
say
5.
that you say that. That's the exact same thing Colin Cowherd said. There was 2 good drives. That was it in
Listen,
that
just because
entire
I
game.
stole that from Colin Cowherd doesn't mean you have to call me out on it, all right?
Well, I didn't
I
realize you
listened to
didn't
that
watch this.
when I was doing notes. I was listening to Colin Cowherd, so there's a lot of things were in there. Robert Taylor's top 5: Chiefs, Packers, Bills, Saints, Seahawks. It's not bad. My number 1 team is still Kansas City. It's been there almost the entire season. I still have New Orleans at number 2. I think they're still going in the right direction now that Drew Brees is getting going. I think when I look at it, I think they're very dangerous come playoff time. What? What are you laughing about now?
I reading these comments. Jordan
Uh,
Brown. If Lamar keeps cramping, Ravens might be top 3.
Cramping.
Yeah.
Uh,
Come on, Jordan.
I mean, Kamara getting the 6 touchdowns was a great story. Obviously don't expect that all the time. They're going to get Michael Thomas back for the playoffs. I think they're a very dangerous team. Buffalo's look so good. the last couple of months. With Josh Allen not turning the ball over and being a bit more consistent, has really helped that team. They're getting a little bit more of a running game going than they have all season long, and Diggs is showing to be at least a top 5 wide receiver, maybe top 3 in the league. Him, Adams, and Hill, I think, might be my top 3 talented receivers right now. So that team is very dangerous as well. So those are the same 3 I had last week. I am moving Green Bay up to my number 4 spot. They are the other team in the NFC I would be really worried about. No Paul Pierce on that one. I hope that's the truth, but it'd be even better if it wasn't. If it was just he really needed a bathroom break. But I will say Lamar was in there for a bit long, or a bit too long for a bathroom break. But it's still great to think. But Green Bay, I'm blanking on the kid's name. Who the rookie running back for Dylan looked fantastic this week. Add him in there with Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams, I know Travis Kelce's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Robert Taylor and I have agreed on that for the last few weeks. He's been setting records as a tight end and is near the lead for receiving yards total. And doing that as a tight end is ridiculous. But Devontae Adams should be in that conversation for sure. Jordan Brown with his top 5 before I get to my 5th. Chiefs, Bills, Packers, Saints, Seahawks. Yeah, I can't disagree there. But
and come on, put it in there. Put it in there.
I'm not going to put it in there. I'm just going to show it. My number 5. So here's the stat. and Robert Taylor and I have talked about this before. I put Tampa Bay at my 5 for weeks. And I was like, okay, they're going to get to their bye week. They're going to get things right. And it took them a little bit. But their last 2 quarters 2 weeks ago, against whoever I'm blanking now, or against Atlanta, where they made the comeback. And then the first 2 weeks this week, but you put those 2, I was like, I want to say Tom Brady had 600 and some yards passing. But Tampa Bay has only defeated 1 team that would currently be in the playoffs right now. There is a team that has beat 2. That team has done it in back-to-back weeks. And it's the only time I may ever be able to do this on the show. And it's a joke, and you guys can have fun. But my New York Jets are my number 5 team. They have beaten more playoff teams than Tampa Bay. If Green Bay beats Chicago and knocks them out of the playoffs, they will have the same amount of wins as the Green Bay Packers do against current playoff teams.
And you gave me a bad time because I would not put your Jets number 32 in the power rankings. What was it?
I wanted them never to win.
10 weeks ago.
I'm going to have fun. They've beaten the Rams and the Browns in back-to-back weeks. They should have beat the Raiders a couple weeks ago. They should have won 3 of their last 4. All right? I'm putting them up there. No, honestly, my 5th team would probably be a Baltimore or a Seattle or a Tampa Bay. It was too difficult to decide. So Robert Taylor and I were joking about it the other day, and I went, screw it. I'm going to have fun with my pick. So the New York Jets, for the one time only, are number 5 in my power rankings. And that will do it for our hour and a half plus of our football hour here on the R&R Sports Report. Now, hopefully you guys stick around for our last half hour, even though we're done with the NFL and we're done football. We're going to talk some local sports before we get to baseball and basketball to finish the show. But if you have stuck around with this long and you're going to leave us, thank you so much. Again, give us a like on Facebook and follow us there. Go hit the subscribe on YouTube as well, just so we can get these numbers up and more people can check it out. We're having a really fun time. This has been my favorite show so far. You guys have been awesome on the comments. This is by far the most comments we've ever had. I'm loving the conversations we're able to have, and we're going to continue doing this week in and week out. But it is now time. It was a segment I didn't think we were going to have this week, as the LCSC Warriors have not played in over a week, and they had nothing scheduled. Every time I talk to the athletic director or the assistant over there at the office, they continue to tell me that they will announce games a few days before, because obviously with COVID, everything kind of gets canceled here and there. And we missed it last week. It was announced after we were doing notes on Tuesday, but before the show, that the CCC, which is the new conference that the LCSC Warriors are in, have postponed all conference wide men's and women's basketball games until March. That was supposed to happen in January. That has now been pushed to at least March. So things, again, getting thrown a curveball here in the Northwest as far as school sports go. Obviously, we talk about Clarkston getting pushed back all the time and stuff. However, a great job by the athletic director putting together a bunch of games now for both the men and the women. The men actually are going to play on Thursday and Friday here at the LCSC Activity Center. It'll be on the lcwarriors.com website. You can also listen to it on the radio, which I blank. What is it? KOZE
Mm-hmm.
is where the Warriors play.
9:50.
They will play Dickinson State on those 2 days. On January 4th, they will take on Williams and Jessup. That'll be up in Caldwell, so it'll be just an off-site game there. January 6th, they will head down to Arizona and take on Benedictine Mesa. And then on the 8th and 9th, they will play a doubleheader against the number 5 NAIA team in the country, Arizona Christian. They'll play that on the 8th and the 9th. And then they'll take on Park from Arizona. And that will also happen in Glendale, Arizona, where they're taking on Arizona Christian. On the women's side, their first game back right now will be January 9th. And they will take on the College of Idaho. And then on the 15th and 16th, they will take on Simpson, who is out of California. All three of those games are in the activity center, and you would think that the schedule for the women will get filled out a little bit more as we go. But again, just one of those things that is happening here at 2020 going into 2021 is schedule is just meant to change. And that's what the Warriors are going to have to deal with a bit more.
Yeah, and 100%. I mean, we need this in the valley, so it's good to see that the ADs are to getting some games scheduled. So I like seeing this. Real quick, a score update: 93-56. Gonzaga leads over Dixie State. Just under 7 minutes left, or right at 7 minutes left to go.
I was expecting it, but once again, 87 points is the lowest total score that Gonzaga has put up in a game, and that was
Yeah,
against number 11, that was against West Virginia, who's a fantastic team.
over under 110. What do you think?
What do we got left?
7.5, 7:15.
93. Oh, I'll go over.
Yeah, it's got to be over on that one. And not before we get into the high school one, but Jonathan, yeah, we did give out a little local shout out to Jesse Davis. I did talk about him. He's been all over that offensive line for show
Maybe,
starts
maybe,
late, kind of like
off
what
season.
Trayvon. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Trayvon's schedule is ridiculous.
Yeah, Trayvon. I've been working on trying to get Trayvon to come on the show with me. And bad part is when we start at 6 o'clock, it's 3 a.m. in Poland.
Mhm.
So we'll probably have to figure out a recording time, but we're working on that to get some athletes talking. I know it's been Christmas holiday. Trying to get some of the other athletes in chatting with us. So hopefully after school starts back up, we do that. So as we were talking about, Lewiston gets back on the court tonight. The boys are down in southern Idaho tonight, as this is normally the Avista tournament weekend, and you and I are normally busy doing Avista. But with no Avista happening here at LCSC, uh, athletic director Corey Williams scheduled a couple games down in southern Idaho. So they are playing Columbia. They tipped off at 6 o'clock. I still have not heard a score update from that one. And then they're going to stick around tonight and then play tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. our time. And they'll play Nampa down there. So the boys get back in actions. The girls played today, come out on the losing end of that ball game, as there's a little round robin 4-team game going on. Lewiston ended up losing today to Grangeville 53-41. and Lapway beats Moscow in this little tournament. And so tomorrow it'll be Moscow versus Lewiston at noon, and then Lapway taking on Grangeville at 2 o'clock. So nice little thing going on that Lewiston is trying to keep basketball happening. Still, unfortunate not being able to get in and do any kind of on air. Or even having spectators in. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes out with that. So,
Yeah, it's just nice that we get anything right now.
mhm,
I
yeah,
still find it funny that we were trying to get this radio show going on for years. We finally get it going, and then all local sports stop. When we were supposed to focus on local sports, and we just don't have it. Just really quick on the college basketball front, Gonzaga is still your number one team in the country. They have 62 of the 64 votes. They've defeated Virginia, just blew them out. The
mhm.
biggest blowout win by Gonzaga against a ranked team in school history, winning 98-75.
Kispert looked unbelievable. 9 3-pointers, looking great. The entire team looks awesome.
They also beat Northern Arizona 88-58, and now they're going to beat Dixie State here to go to 9-0. They will start their West Coast Conference play January 2nd against San Francisco, and we will be covering there. Gonzaga, the women's still doing pretty well. I don't think we updated that actually. So
No, they haven't played any games, so it's the same. Yeah, so they are still 5-2, still number 23 in the ranking. So they're still on their 4-game winning streak. So that's great for them.
The women are going to play on the 30th at Pepperdine, so they start there, or I guess they've already started. They're 1-0 in conference. They'll play Pepperdine tomorrow, and then it looks like Saturday they take on St. Mary's, and Monday they'll take on Pacific. So a busy week for the Bulldog women.
Yeah, and also in local story, Washington State still looking good, 8-0 on the season. Their next game up is actually Thursday, 1 o'clock game against Arizona State, their first conference game. So I'm looking excited for that as WSU is still 8-0, no look into the top 25.
They had Oregon State
Oregon
early.
State. Yeah, so 8-0, still no looks for top 25 as Oregon State, or Oregon is in the top. I believe they're 23rd in the nation right now.
I
So
guarantee you, if Washington State beats Arizona State on Thursday, and then they take on Arizona on Saturday, if they win both of those games, I think WSU at 10-0 with 2 decent wins there will finally get a sniff at the top 25. Again, we talked about it last week. Their strength of schedule is
yeah,
horrendous.
right now, yeah, especially in the early part of the season. Get them into the later part, and we see all this conference play. So
And speaking of Arizona, they have a self-imposed 1-year postseason ban, which you see all the time anymore in college sports. NCAA had 9 charges against Arizona, most with the men's basketball program with ties of Sean Miller, and they're off to a 7-1 start, so that kind of sucks for them.
yeah, and this all goes back to Book Richardson, who ended up getting 3 months in jail for all the bribery charges, and that's where it goes back to. So um, I think it's good on their part before NCAA comes down with some um, more penalties there. So
All right, let's look at the NBA now, as we're a week into that season and a week into our challenge, where again we did a draft where we picked teams. We did it for the Eastern Conference, and then we did it for the Western Conference, and so we split the NBA in half. And whoever's teams has the most wins at the end of the year wins our challenge and pays for dinner or something. We haven't figured out the odds, but after the first week, my teams are 22-20. So 22 wins for my teams. Robert's teams also have 22 wins, but 24 losses. So technically, I'm slightly ahead winning percentage-wise, but we both have the same amount of wins. News in the NBA, Jay Morant for the Memphis Grizzlies, reigning NBA Rookie of the Year, will miss 3 to 5 weeks after spraining his left ankle. Kevin Love is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks with a calf injury. Who would have thought the Cleveland Cavaliers would be 3-0 to start the season? One of 4 undefeated teams coming into the day with the Orlando Magic, Indiana Pacers, and Atlanta Hawks, which we all predicted. And we all thought that's how that was going to go, right?
yeah, no kidding.
And then Brooklyn Nets lose their guard Spencer Dinwiddie with a partially torn right ACL. He'll have surgery next week. Probably will miss the rest of the season. They're hopeful he'll come back for playoffs. It's stretched out so long that he might be able to come back in time, as long as the damage isn't too terrible in there. It sucks for me as I finally play fantasy basketball for the first time ever, and he's on my team, of course. And a fun story for me: the Dallas Mavericks led the Los Angeles Clippers, who was my number one pick in the Western Conference in our draft, 77-27 at halftime on Sunday. They ended up winning the game 124-73. It was a record in the shot clock era for a lead in the first half for the Mavericks. They only shot 58%,
Yeah.
which doesn't sound that crazy, but the Clippers only shoot 24%. Mavericks out-rebounded them double, 32-16. They had 6 steals to the none for the Clippers. And the big one for me, 34 points in the paint for the Mavericks, which was, of course, more than the Clippers' total of 27 in the first half. As Eric Watkins also says, the Morant injury was a killer on his fantasy team early on. So a lot of fantasy talk. We did good in football, not bringing it up, but fantasy basketball, man. What injury do you think has the biggest impact? Morant, Love, or Dinwiddie?
Well, I think for me, if Memphis wants to try to make a move, it's probably going to be Jay. Being out 3 to 5 weeks, I haven't looked at the schedule to see who they play, but it's going to be huge for them if they don't get him back quicker.
Oh, and there you are. I didn't see that yet. And the Bucks just set a record for most threes in a game, which is why I don't watch basketball anymore. They only shoot threes.
No defense. Yeah, no defense.
MLB news. I wanted to make sure we got to this. We're running out of time, and we still have this week in sports history. But Blake Snell is traded from the Rays to the Padres. The Rays will receive pitchers Luis Patino and Cole Wilcox, as well as catchers Blake Hunt and Francisco Mejia. Luis Patino is supposed to be fantastic, a top 25 prospect in Major League Baseball. Mejia was supposed to be another top 25 prospect a few years ago, was brought up with the Cleveland Indians, struggled to find time, was traded to San Diego. Again, just could not get into a bit of a role, but we know what Tampa Bay does with prospects.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this will be a big turnaround for him. Blake Snell, the last time we brought up that name was in Game 6 of the World Series. Sorry, Eric, for bringing that up again, where we were shocked that they pulled him so early, and that was his last pitches for the Rays, and now goes to the Padres. The Padres were not done, though, as they sent 5 players to Chicago to get Yu Darvish. So just like that, the Padres rotation will add Yu Darvish and Blake Snell. Are the Padres the favorite in the National League next year?
No, they still have. I mean, they still have to compete with the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers still the team in the West. So, and in the NL, I really think so. They've got to really show some major growth with those 2 guys coming in.
I think so too. I feel bad for the other teams in the NL West because all of a sudden the Padres and Dodgers are fantastic. Eric says, at least I got to enjoy one crazy. I think the Rays are going to be just fine. Yeah, they may not be as dominant as they were, but the AL East is still having struggles. The Yankees have not made a single move yet in the offseason. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to see if DJ LeMahieu will stick in pinstripes or not. That story is driving me crazy.
I think a lot of it
every day another team becomes a possibility. I've heard Mets, now I'm hearing Dodgers.
I think it's been a slow season just because of the COVID thing. Everything is nobody's making any big moves. I look to probably the middle of January we start hearing a lot of moves.
It'll get there. Pirates traded Josh Bell to the Nationals. That move surprised me. They get a couple pitchers in the deal. Bell had that fantastic season 2 years ago with 37 homers. Really struggled last year, but I think I've said this on the show before. How much can you blame players for having a bad year last year with everything going on? Baseball is a game about routine, and there was nothing routine about 2020. So I think the Nationals got a steal with this move. A couple moves that happened last week that we just didn't get to because we had stuff to talk about. Tommy Kahnle from the Yankees signs a 2-year deal with the Dodgers. He had Tommy John surgery in August. One of those moves that they're hoping he's there for postseason next year and forward. Jose Urena goes to Detroit. No one cares. Rays did sign Michael Waka, so there's something for you, Eric. Michael Waka, woo. That they figured they could get rid of Snell because of that, right? And then the sad news of Phil Niekro passing away on December 26th at the age of 81. Played 21 years for
I think,
just
yeah, I
but
think the crazier one is he won 120. What was it? 121 games after the age of 40, throwing a knuckleball. Pitched until he was 48 years old. So, one of the foremost people in Atlanta history, even in baseball history, kind of changed how things look. So, sad news there.
all right, it is now time. And I forgot I make these banners every week and I forgot to even use banners. I've been having so much fun in the comments. But it is now time for Robert to tell us this week in sports history.
Yeah, this week in sports history, I'm going to cut it down just a little bit. Christmas Day 2008, Phil Jackson becomes the sixth coach in NBA history with 1,000 wins. This one you probably get a kick out of, Randy. December 26, 1919, the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox finally reached the agreement to move future Hall of Famer Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees.
That worked out for one team pretty well, I think.
For one team. But what's funny is the very next day, December 27th, 1919, Red Sox owner Harry Frazee announced that they will deal any player except Harry Hooper for the Red Sox. And then Hooper spends one season and gets traded at the end of the 1920 season to the White Sox. So kind of crazy how Hooper's not getting moved, but he gets moved anyway. So um, also on the 27th, 1964, the National Football League Championship, Cleveland Stadium. The Cleveland Browns beat the Baltimore Colts 20-7. It was the last championship in Cleveland by a major sports team until 2016 when the Cavaliers brought one home. December 27th, 1987, your Seattle Seahawks, Steve Largent set the all-time record for career catches at that time was 752. He ended his career with 819 catches, and he's now 31st on that list all time. The greatest game ever played, the Baltimore Colts win the 26th NFL championship and first ever sudden overtime game, 23-17 over the New York Giants at Yankee Stadium. And that was a great game. Part of the reason why I follow Baltimore, with Johnny Unitas. Also in December 28, 1975, Dallas Cowboys Roger Staubach throws a legendary 50-yard touchdown pass to Drew Pearson to beat the Minnesota Vikings 17-14. And Staubach is coined with the phrase using the Hail Mary in a post-game interview. Let's see, December 29th, Tom Brady sets the record of 50 touchdown passes in a season, and the New England Patriots become the first team in NFL history to finish the season 16-0. So that is your history this week in history. All right, buddy.
All right,
So
it's time. You're what is
I
it, 4-0, 5-0,
5-0, and I
5-0.
think I'm going to give you. I think I'm going to go ahead and give you your first win because there was a couple of them that I
But
wanted to
see,
give you.
here's the great thing now. I got my buddy Eric, who's been hanging out watching the show. That man is an encyclopedia, and he's going to help me get this one right.
I'm gonna go easy. I'm gonna make it. I feel like I'm in a giving mood.
Okay.
It's the holiday season, and I'm gonna go back up to the question with Steve Largent. He sets the
Oh,
all-time NFL record for career catches with 752. He ended his career with 819 catches, but he's now 31st on the all-time list.
okay.
Can you name three of the top five
Oof.
on that list
Oh,
now?
Jerry Rice
There's one.
for sure.
He leads with 1,549 receptions.
Marvin Harrison.
He is fifth with 1,102. You've got 2 for 2 so far.
Oh, who else was really good at just ridiculous amounts of catches? There's so many names out there you could just throw out. I'm trying. Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald, very good, sir. You got 3 for 3. So now you're
Damn.
5-1. Larry Fitzgerald, 1,432. But there is one other. There's a few others I want to mention in this, but there is one other active person. Can you tell me who the other active person is?
God, who's been around forever?
If I give you the hint, it'll be a no-brainer.
Yeah, give me the hint. Because I'm.
He came back out of retirement.
Oh, is it Dez? Who's the other guy that came
J-
out?
Jason
Oh,
Witten.
Jason Witten. He's all the way up
Yeah.
there. That's
So
nice.
your top 5 are Jerry Rice with 1,549, Larry Fitzgerald with 1,432, Tony Gonzalez and Jason Witten, both tight ends, one with 1,325 and Jason Witten with 1,228, Marvin Harrison with 1,102, and there's one individual that has 1,101, one catch behind Marvin Harrison. Any idea?
I got nothing.
Chris Carter. Chris Carter.
See,
So
he was
I
one
went easy for
that
you.
was really close on.
Yeah, so I went really easy with you on that one. So congratulations, sir. You
I got
finally
one.
answered trivia.
I was trying to think. Reggie Wayne was another one I was thinking about. He's 10th. I got lucky that the two that I ended up going with were the ones that were right. Obviously, Jerry Rice was the easy one. So I'm happy with myself. I'm off to Schneid.
And I have one more.
Okay,
And
let's hear it. We got 1 minute.
well, yeah, this one came from my dad the other day, and he listens. Mom and dad listen to the show very religiously, and I didn't realize this. Did you know that we lost a country singer last week? Did
The
you know? Did you know that he played baseball? I did not know Charlie Pride played baseball in the Negro League and also played a little bit in the MLB. I did not know that. Dad threw that one at me after that. I always knew Charlie Pride as just being a country singer, and all that, and he hit me with that. I learned something the other day that somebody else played sports.
That's awesome, and sad for his passing. Sad for a wrestler who went by Luke Harper or Brody Lee. His passing was tragic. He's only 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
Had lung issues. Seeing those stories, I mean, even if you're not a wrestling fan, just look up R.I.P. Brody Lee on Twitter. His influence backstage was very, very strong, very big family man, and hearing some of the stories from what he was doing backstage was fantastic. So sad to hear about that one as well. But that is going to do it for this edition of the R&R Sports Report. I want to once again thank everyone that has commented this week. You guys made this the funnest show we've had so far. If we pushed football to an extra half hour, and we had to cut it short because we had some stuff that we really needed to get to. So thank you so much for that. Again, like us and follow us on Facebook, give us a subscription, and follow us on YouTube as well. Those are 2 ways you can keep up with us. On YouTube, I plan on breaking these shows down starting next year, where you can watch it in segments if you missed a show, and you don't have to watch it in a 2-hour chunk if you don't want to. Just to give you another option. It worked really well. We did that with the Gino Benelli interview a couple weeks ago, and that worked out really well. So I think we're going to go with that. Next week is going to be another jam-packed show. The Warriors are going to get back going. It looks like the Bengals are getting their schedule going. We're going to have a Heisman winner. We're going to be able to preview the conference football championship game. We're going to have wild card weekend to get ready for. We'll have Black Monday to talk about, more basketball and baseball news, all sorts of stuff next week. So make sure to come back here 6 p.m. Pacific time. And also go check out the Kickoff. Eric Watkins is on that show. He's fantastic. He knows way too much stuff. He is a legit encyclopedia. It's a very fun show. They've taken the last couple weeks off because one of the hosts has been working overtime ridiculously over the holidays. So they will be back, I believe, either this week or next week. So go follow them as well. But for Robert, I'm Randy. We've had a fantastic time. Enjoy your New Year's. We will see you in 2021. But for right now, we are out.